हेलो एंड वेलकम टू द देसी फायर पॉडकास्ट। उम्मीद करता हूँ आपने हमारे पुराने एपिसोड देखे होंगे और आपको वो अच्छे भी लगे होंगे। उन एपिसोड्स में हमने बात की कि फायर, फाइनेंशियल इंडिपेंडेंट रिटायरमेंट अर्ली होता क्या है, किन किन चीज़ों का हमें ध्यान रखना ज़रूरी है। आज के एपिसोड में हम लोग मेनली बात करेंगे कि हमें कितने पैसे की ज़रूरत है और व्हाट इज़ द रिटायरमेंट कॉर्पस दैट इज़ नीडेड टू अचीव फायर। फाइनेंशियली इंडिपेंडेंट होने के लिए हमें क्या कॉर्पस चाहिए, और इसके बारे में बात करने के लिए हम लोगों ने कुछ असम्पशंस लिए हैं जिससे ये नंबर निकल के आता है। ये नंबर हर आदमी के लिए अलग होगा। असम्पशंस भी हो सकता है आप लोग बोलोगे कि ये असम्पशन वैलिड नहीं है। फेयर इनफ, यू हैव कंप्लीट फ्रीडम टू पुट इन योर ओन वैल्यूज एंड टेक योर ओन असम्पशंस। तो चलिए शुरू करते हैं आज का एपिसोड। मैं हूँ आपका होस्ट रवि हांडा और हमारे साथ है
Hi, I'm Ram Shankar.
तो राम, लेट्स जंप राइट इन। हाउ मच मनी डू यू नीड टू रिटायर? हाउ डू यू फिगर दैट आउट?
So to get started, we've taken a certain set of assumptions. We assume that you're around 40 years old, you're a married couple, you have one kid, and that you don't have any other dependents. For example, your parents aren't dependent on you, or you don't have any other costs that you need to factor. To keep it simple, we've taken three scenarios. We saw that geography is probably the biggest decision you can take. Beyond that, a lot of it is your own choice. So we've modeled it for three scenarios. So scenario one is to look at a smaller city like Unveiled. Scenario two was to look at a slightly bigger city like Jaipur. And finally, scenario three was a semi-metro, or if you want to call it a metro, something like Hyderabad. We also have all these assumptions that are factored, and we have a spreadsheet that is linked in the description. So if you want to change any of this, feel free to download the spreadsheet and model your own assumptions on it. So in terms of expense categories, there are three broad categories that we've looked at, just to help us categorize some of the spends. So the first is monthly expenses. These are typically expenses that you would see on a monthly basis, that you typically plan on a monthly basis. So it could be things like how much you're spending on groceries, how much you're spending on maintenance of the house, on health and so on. The second bucket, that category that we looked at, was annual expenses. These strictly may or may not be annual expenses. For example, we have assumed travel. We assumed X number of travels within India and X number of travels outside of India. So some of them might happen multiple times in a year. Some of them might happen once in a couple of years. But just to keep it simple from a planning perspective, we have annualized these expenses. And finally is any one-time expense, your typical big ticket capital expenses that you'll have. In case, for example, you've not bought a house, that would fall in this category. It could be your children's education or other expenses that would typically be a big lump sum expense that you want to plan for before you take the leap. So, Handa, do you want to walk us through some of the numbers?
Sure. तो मंथली एक्सपेंसेस को हम लोगों ने तीन ब्रॉड कैटेगरीज में रखा है। एक हो गया मेंटेनेंस, जो कि आपको रेगुलर खर्चे करने पड़ते हैं, विच आर सॉर्ट ऑफ अनअवॉइडेबल इन नेचर। इफ़ यू विल नोटिस, इसमें मैंने रेंट नहीं रखा है। रेंट नहीं रखने का मंथली एक्सपेंसेस में एक फंडामेंटल बिलीफ है मेरा और राम दोनों का, कि जब आप अर्ली रिटायरमेंट ले रहे हैं, यू शुड नॉट रियली बी डूइंग दैट ऑन रेंट। एक कोई ना कोई आपका घर, फ्लैट या जगह आपकी होनी चाहिए। यू शुड ओन दैट, एंड दैट्स व्हाट वी आर गोइंग विद। फिर बच्चों के लिए हमने स्कूल फीस एंड एनरिचमेंट बेसिकली कराटे क्लासेस करवानी है, टेनिस क्लासेस करवानी है, stuff like that, entertainment and hobbies, and then we have kept a buffer factor of 10%. तो सबसे पहले talking about the actual numbers, I am starting with जयपुर, क्योंकि मैं जयपुर में रहता हूँ और मेरे को जयपुर के खर्चों के बारे में थोड़ा बहुत आइडिया है। अब ऐसा हो सकता है that these numbers look really really different for you, quite possible. मैं ये नहीं बोल रहा हूँ कि ये एकदम accurate numbers हैं, but इसीलिए जो एक्सेल हमने इसको यूज़ की है कैलकुलेट करने के लिए, वो एक्सेल हम आप लोगों के साथ में शेयर कर रहे हैं. उसका लिंक आपको, अगर आप यूट्यूब पे देख रहे हैं तो यूट्यूब के वीडियो की डिस्क्रिप्शन में यू गेट अ लिंक टू दैट एक्सेल एंड यू कैन पुट इन योर ओन वैल्यूज. एंड आई सीन मेनी अदर कैलकुलेटर्स लाइक दैट. एक मुझे लगा इट्स ऑलवेज बेटर टू गिव इट पुट इन सम वैल्यूज एंड सम assumptions and then you can take it forward from there. So for Jaipur, I've assumed groceries as 20,000 rupees. These are the expenses in early 2023. Maybe आप 3 साल वाली वीडियो देख रहे होंगे, these numbers would be different because of inflation, but these are the numbers that I believe are valid for Jaipur in 2023. Groceries के लिए 20,000, fuel के लिए 5,000, utilities जिसमें आपकी बिजली का बिल आ गया, पानी का बिल आ गया, इंटरनेट का बिल आ गया, मोबाइल का बिल आ गया, that's around 5,000 rupees. Medicines and consultation. So now this figure आपको लग रहा होगा कुछ लोगों को यार हर महीने 4,000 किसका दवाई पर खर्चा होता है. मेरा एक 2 साल का बच्चा है तो वो डॉक्टर की कंसल्टेशन कुछ ना कुछ चलते रहते हैं, कुछ ना कुछ वैक्सीन वगैरह का चलता रहता है. सो दैट इज़ वाई आई हैव पुट इन दीज फिगर्स. मैं एक फ्लैट में रहता हूँ तो वो हाउसिंग सोसाइटी का मेंटेनेंस जाता है, एंड देन देयर इज हाउस हेल्प विच इज देयर. अगेन दिस फिगर कुड बी ज़ीरो, दिस फिगर कुड बी 20,000 rupees depending upon how many house help do you have. Do you have a driver, then there is a cook, then there is someone to clean, or you might be on the other spectrum कि नहीं यार ये सारे काम तो मैं as long as possible जब तक मेरे हाथ चल रहे हैं मैं खुद ही करूँगा, then this number could be zero as well. स्कूल फीस के लिए मैंने जयपुर के जो सबसे महंगे वाले 3-4 स्कूल है जिनके अंदर मैं नहीं सोच रहा हूँ मैं अपने बच्चे को भेजूँगा, ऊपर के 3-4 स्कूल्स को मैंने हटा दिया है. एंड देन आई लुक्ड एट, सो I looked at the numbers from a lot of other schools in places like Bangalore and Hyderabad. It's relatively cheaper here, so it's 7,500 rupees a month is what I've kept at. There were tuition classes, karate classes, singing classes and tennis classes के लिए मैंने 4,000 a month के आसपास का एक्सपेंस रखा है. एंटरटेनमेंट एंड हॉबीज़, इसमें आपके नेटफ्लिक्स सब्सक्रिप्शन आ गए, इसमें आपका बाहर खाना पीना आ गया. इफ़ यू हैव एनी अदर हॉबीज़ देन दोज कम इनटू इट. और फिर इस पूरे फिगर को टूल करके एक मैंने बफर फैक्टर रखा है, एंड दैट बफर फैक्टर दैट वी हैव केप्ट इज ऑफ 10% ऑन ऑल वैल्यूज़. क्योंकि एक तो होता है असम्पशन, अब असम्पशन के अगर ऊपर हो एक कंफर्ट आप रखो बफर, दैट्स ऑलवेज बेटर बिकॉज देयर विल ऑलवेज बी सम little bit of expenses that you have not planned for, and it is good to have that sort of a number. So these are the numbers.
Yeah, ideally, I think there's that temptation which, if you, for example, you have a new cost and it's predictable to put it under miscellaneous, ideally you should create a separate line item. क्यों miscellaneous कहीं ना कहीं से आ जाता है, एक random variable आ ही जाता है. So anything that can be predicted should ideally be a line item separately.
Sure. जैसे कि for example, I was talking to a friend of mine, तो young friend, तो बोला यार जिम वगैरह का तो मेरा खर्चा रहेगा ही रहेगा as long as I have mobile. मैंने जिम और जिम membership, that doesn't really fit in it. Maybe you can put it in hobbies, maybe you can put it in entertainment. But for those of you जो कि Excel को लेके अपना customize कर रहे हैं, I would recommend कि Excel में आप एक row add कर दो, would be easier or better that way. So these were the numbers for Jaipur. I spoke to a friend of mine who lives in Alva who said more or less it's going to be the same numbers, but थोड़ा बहुत जो फर्क पड़ेगा. These are the numbers that he suggested that I use for Alva. And as you can see, काफ़ी फ़र्क आ जाता है इन बहुत सारी कॉस्ट के अंदर. जैसे जो आपकी स्कूल की फ़ीस है, that drops substantially. The house help fee, the house help, the money that you need to spend on house help, that drops substantially as well. Demand and supply का खेला है basically. Now would you like to talk about Hyderabad numbers? Hyderabad is something that we picked because Hyderabad is a city of choice for Ram to take retirement in.
Yeah, and thankfully Handa also had friends in Hyderabad, so you're able to verify these numbers. So again, this is like a big driver of your decision depending on whether you choose Alwar, Jaipur or Hyderabad. There's a significant variance, at least like 30-40% difference in these costs. So if you compare Hyderabad this assuming the same thing lands at about 1.1 lakhs versus 80k for Jaipur and 50k for Alwar.
Oh,
So clearly Hyderabad is more expensive. So if I have to retire there, I think I need to spend some more time
true.
working.
True. Let's talk a little bit about the annual expenses. Ram, do you want to explain these numbers?
Yeah. So we broadly looked at what are the major buckets, and these were the buckets that we came to. So one was vacations. We still want to travel, go around. The second is insurance. It's good to be protected, especially when, let's say, once you're in fire mode, there might not be new income that's coming in. Then there are going to be costs on vehicle buying, so on, and then there are other costs that you bucketed under others. So vacation, our assumption is domestic vacation where we go twice a year and roughly be 1 lakh per trip. Broadly, we did some back of the envelope calculations for flight costs for 3 people. We looked at hotel costs plus moving around, eating and so on.
So this is 1
for
lakh.
international
This is for 1 lakh a year, 1 lakh per vacation. And I like to add the assumptions that I took when I put these numbers in is कि आप flight से जाओगे, that is one. Second is the sort of hotels that you will be staying in. They are not going to be मतलब आप Marriott, ITC, Taj में नहीं रुक रहे हो, but आप hotel decent में भी नहीं रुक रहे हो. So think of something like a Fern हो गया या 4 Points हो गया or Ibis, so Lemon Tree. That is the range of hotels that you would be staying in. That's what I assumed over there. जहाँ तक इंश्योरेंस की बात है राम, why have you kept it A as 0 and B, why do you मतलब लाइफ इंश्योरेंस रखा ही क्यों है अगर 0 रखा है तो, या 0 क्यों रखा है? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think some cases people already have some insurance policies that they want to continue to maintain. In other cases, there might be some life circumstance which requires them to have some kind of protection for the future. Again, we've kept it at 0. Traditionally, in fire mode, you don't really plan for life insurance, but if you really feel the need, there's a line item. But yeah, I think the important thing to focus is on the health insurance aspect. Health insurance costs continue to go up. It can be a big unplanned expense, so it's very important that you're protected from that perspective. And you might have noticed that we have a separate medicine/consultation in the previous line, in the previous slide. We also have a separate insurance so that it protects you from some of the bigger expenses, not necessarily like the ongoing vaccinations and checkups that we anyway are factoring in as part of monthly expense. Then, sir, we'll go on to vehicle. We assume that, for example, it's a car worth 10 lakhs, depreciated it over 10 years. It will have a lifetime of 10 years. So we've just taken a simple 10 lakhs divided by 10 as the annualized cost and roughly a 25k cost for insurance plus servicing. Again, people could argue that this could be higher or low. Feel free to update it. The idea is to get a broad sense, not to have each and every I's dotted, but at least to get a sense of what the broad numbers would look like. Then, of course, there are things like house repair, upgrades, property tax. Something will need to be fixed. You will probably want a new sofa because the old one is wearing out. You need stuff that continues to break in the house that you need to fix. And of course, consumer durables and electronics. That is something that I think we have previously discussed. You might want to replace your phone. You dropped your laptop. You want to get your AC fixed or any of these consumer durables fixed. Your TV needs to be replaced. So we need to plan for that. So finally, when we look at this, if you look at it, this doesn't necessarily vary by which city you're choosing to live in. So the total annual expense that we were able to forecast, we broadly think that it will come to about 7.5 lakhs. So Handa, what are like the big ticket expenses that we should be planning for?
हाँ, अब देखो सबसे जो बड़ा big ticket expense है जिसके अंदर you cannot negotiate your way out of it, and I have said this before in the video as well, very strongly believe इफ़ यू आर रिटायरिंग अर्ली, घर फ्लैट आपके रहने की कम से कम एक जगह होनी चाहिए. यू कैन नॉट, you should not do that on rent. Makes life difficult, फालतू का idea. At the end of the day, the entire idea behind fire is to have a comfortable life. And for someone like me, if I don't own a house, that's going to be really problematic. So we looked at costs of flats. Again, your requirement could be very different from my requirement. टिपिकल हाउस फ्लैट के लिए हमने ये जो 3 रेंज पकड़ी है फॉर अलवर, जयपुर एंड हैदराबाद, 60 lakhs, 80 lakhs and 1 crore. फील फ्री टू चेंज द नंबर्स, बट जयपुर के अंदर मैं आपको बता सकता हूँ 80 लाख के अंदर आपको आउटस्कर्ट्स ऑफ द सिटी के अंदर एक ठीक ठाक 3 BHK मिल जाएगा. सो लेट्स से इन अ प्लेस लाइक वैशाली अदर विच इज अ डिसेंट लोकेलिटी, यू कैन गेट अ 3 BHK फॉर अराउंड 80 लाख रुपीज़. उसके बाद में then we talk about big ticket expenses. Now, this is something that makes a lot of difference to your fire number. क्योंकि हर एक चीज़, हर एक आइटम में ड्रास्टिक वेरिएशन हो सकता है. एंड हम लोगों ने यहाँ पे कुछ नंबर डाले हैं. सो जैसे कि किड्स कॉलेज के लिए मैंने 50 lakhs डाला है. नाउ सम 50 lakhs टुडे, एक तो बहुत सारे लोगों को ये लगता है कि यार ये 50 लाख है, आज से 5 साल बाद या आज से 15 साल बाद जब मेरा बच्चा कॉलेज आएगा तो 50 लाख की वैल्यू कुछ नहीं रह जाएगी. पता है मुझे कुछ नहीं रह जाएगी, नॉट डिनाइंग दैट. बट अगर आपके पास में आज 50 लाख रुपए है और कॉलेज की फीस वट एवर सॉर्ट ऑफ कॉलेज, ग्रेजुएशन, पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन यू आर अज्यूमिंग, उसकी 50 लाख रुपए, अगर 15 साल में ये 50 लाख से 1.5 करोड़ जाएगा तो आपका पैसा भी 15 साल में 50 लाख से 1.5 करोड़ चला जाएगा. दैट इज हाउ यू इन्वेस्ट इट. So whatever is the inflation that is going to happen in this, the returns that you have will take care of the inflation. So these are, आज की डेट में आप assume कीजिए कि which college you want to send your kid to और उसकी cost को देखिए, put those in here. Second item, kids marriage. मैंने यहाँ पे 50 लाख डाल तो दिया है, I don't agree with it. मैं अपने बच्चे को 5 लाख या 50, मतलब उसका घूमने का एक ट्रिप का पैसा दूंगा. किसी और को खाना पिलाने के लिए आई एम नॉट गोइंग टू, आई एक्चुअली एट दिस पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम आई डोंट थिंक आई एम गोइंग टू स्पेंड अ पेनी ऑन माय किड्स वेडिंग. बट पीपल फील डिफरेंट.
I agree. I would rather reduce this and could bump it up into kids college.
और कितना डालेगा भाई तू, मतलब अच्छा हाँ, अब नाउ सपोज इफ यू वांट योर किड टू गो टू Stanford for a medical degree, then that number would probably go to what, 2.5 crores.
Oh, yeah, half of the time you're telling people on Twitter to migrate, become NRIs and whatnot.
If you are an,
You have to...
yes.
हाँ, अगर कनाडा में पढ़ाना है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया में पढ़ाना, भाई खर्चा तो पड़ेगा ही.
तो अपने आप करेगा ना, वो टैलेंट होगा, स्कॉलरशिप लेगा जाएगा, स्कॉलरशिप नहीं होगा लोन लेगा, लोन लेके जाएगा. मेरी जन
क्या बात है.
So
मतलब तुम नहीं करोगे. So anyway, if you already planned for 1 crore, what difference does it make to you whether it's going for the marriage or...
So
from that perspective, you're indifferent. And he becomes an NRI. Wouldn't you be happy?
I would be very happy if my kid becomes an NRI. I have not planned 1 crore for this. I have planned 50 lakhs for both of these items combined. जो मैं kids marriage से पैसा बचा रहा हूँ, I am putting that in the other categories. I'm not going to put it in college. Say for example, यहाँ पे हमने play money के लिए 0 रखा है. So ये 50 लाख का कुछ हिस्सा play money के अंदर जाएगा. Now, what do I mean by play money? Play money would be stuff, that you would want to do, but you don't have, a very clear outline कि अच्छा इसको मैं किस category में डालूँ. Say for example, I have been making a few angel investments here and there. Now, should I count them as a part of my equity portfolio? Obviously not. क्योंकि उसका कोई भरोसा नहीं है. वो मतलब ये लिटरली मैंने एक कंपनी के अंदर नवंबर में पैसा डाला था और फरवरी तक उन लोग का आ गया कि नहीं भैया पैसा आपका डूब गया है. सो नवंबर 22 में पैसा डाला और फरवरी 23 तक वो पैसा ऑलरेडी डूब चुका था. सो इफ़ यू वांट टू डू स्टफ लाइक दैट, देन दैट कम्स अंडर प्ले मनी. इफ यू वांट टू पास ऑन समथिंग टू द नेक्स्ट जनरेशन, द इनहेरिटेंस पार्ट, दैट comes under the inheritance item. So for both of those numbers are 0. तो मैं किड्स मैरिज के अंदर जो है उसको मैं प्ले मनी में डालूंगा, इनहेरिटेंस में डालूंगा. एंड ऑफ लाइफ केयर, सो आई बिलीव दैट्स अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट आइटम दैट अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल फॉरगेट कि एंड ऑफ लाइफ केयर से मेरा मतलब है एब्सोल्युटली एट द एंड. नाउ we would be extremely lucky कि हम रात को सोते सोते we pass away, but it's not necessary that life would turn out that way. So suppose when you are old, or there could be other circumstances, before, so to say, kicking the bucket, हो सकता है that you need extensive life care and something like that. So for that, there is a separate buffer that I have kept, 10 lakh rupees की, अच्छा हाँ वो कुछ होना चाहिए, something to take care of the last part. Yes, health insurance तो यार हम लोगों ने पहले ले लिया, कोई बात नहीं, this is just कि एकदम, I don't want the last month to be problematic because of money, so this is the buffer for that. And then, as usual, a 10% buffer that we have kept on all values. And that is how we have come up with these figures for one-time expenses, which, if you look at it, again, broadly speaking, 2 crore ke aaspaas hai, but that's a big rate. So, for Alwar, it's 187. For Hyderabad, it's 231. Once again, put in your own values, what sort of a flat you want, बच्चे के कॉलेज में उसको कहाँ भेजना है, उसका आज का कॉस्ट क्या है वो आप यहाँ डालिए, क्या आप इनहेरिटेंस छोड़ना चाहते हैं, कितनी छोड़ना चाहते हैं वो आप यहाँ डालिए, and all those things come in yeah. And that would lead us to our actual final numbers. Ram, would you like to explain the final numbers?
Yeah. So the way we arrived at these final numbers was we looked at the annual expense, which is we already talked through the monthly expenses, multiplied that by 12. We added the recurring annual expenses. So that gave us like the annual expenses on an ongoing basis that you would expect. We multiplied by 30. Why 30? There's a lot of research. What should the standard withdrawal rate be? There are ranges going right from 2.5%, 2.6% to 4%. We took a midline number at 3.33%, which was somewhere halfway. You invert that, that is 1 by 3.33, so that gives you 30 times. So we basically multiply that. And then you add the one-time expenses. So the numbers that you then get for Alwar, Jaipur and Hyderabad are 6.1 CR, 7.2 CR and 8.6 CR. This is in today's money. This is in 2023 money. So if you're going to retire sometime later, so you need to update that so that you factor in the inflation of costs and you arrive at that number. So if you look at it, it's roughly about 1.5 CR off or all the three, depending on which decision you make. And that's your main decision that you have discretion of, which is where do you want to finally retire.
And I disagree with just one thing, कि that's not the main decision. यार हैदराबाद में भी 60 लाख के फ्लैट्स होते हैं, ऐसा नहीं है कि हैदराबाद में you will not get a decent flat for 60 lakh rupees. You will. And Jaipur के अंदर भी, so there is this society called Jewel of India. I'm not promoting them, obviously. High card. So Jewel of India करके it's a beautiful society. वहाँ पे फ्लैट्स आई थिंक 4.5 या 5 करोड़ से स्टार्ट होते हैं. तो it depends. मतलब कि what
I saw that as well. Especially in Hyderabad, the range that I saw. But see, the point is there are lots of micro decisions, to be honest. Like you said, schooling may be, or if you decide to go with the top 4 schools, this would look a little different versus not. Whether you want to have your kids study overseas versus not.
Correct.
So, again, so many variables over here. I think this is one important variable that impacts a lot of the costs that we've looked at.
True.
If you look at all the others are mostly individualized. You will, or you already know what you want in life. Maybe this is something, at least from a lot of people that we spoke to, I think this is something that people are open to.
True.
कुछ तो गाँव जाके खेती बाड़ी करना चाहते हैं.
कोई नहीं करता है, मतलब करना बहुत लोग चाहते हैं, बट आई पर्सनली डू नॉट नो जो कि एक्चुअली जो है ना करना है वो. सो इट्स आई डोंट नो इफ यू आर एक्चुअली एबल टू डू इट, गुड फॉर यू. इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू रैडिकली चेंज योर लाइफ स्टाइल. मतलब तुम जिंदगी भर बैंगलोर में काम किया और उसके बाद तुम कोट्टयम में जाके पेपर उगाना चालू कर देगा. यस, सम पीपल कैन डू दैट, बट नॉट अ लॉट ऑफ देम. तो fundamentally, let's say, so somewhere between 6 to 9 crores is the number that we are talking about. Once again, आप अपने नंबर्स पुट इन कीजिए, ट्राई आउट कीजिए कि व्हाट फिगर इट कम्स टू। जो इससे एसोसिएटेड एक्सेल है, गूगल शीट है, उसका लिंक हम लोगों ने इस वीडियो के डिस्क्रिप्शन में डाल रखा है, वेयर यू कैन पुट इन योर नंबर्स। एंड आई guess, yes, one thing that I like to very strongly suggest is कि हो सकता है आपको लग रहा हो कि यार 6 करोड़ बहुत छोटा नंबर है या 9 करोड़ जो है वो बहुत बड़ा नंबर है, बिकॉज वी आर एट वेरी डिफरेंट पॉइंट्स इन आवर लाइफ। बट छोटा है बड़ा है दैट इज सेकेंडरी। व्हाट यू नीड टू डू एज एन एक्सरसाइज इज फिगर आउट व्हाट दैट नंबर इज फॉर यू, एंड you will not get the exact number because थोड़ा सा वेरिएबल से ही बहुत कुछ चेंज हो जाएगा, बट एक कम से कम 6 to 7 is the range you are looking at, or 12 to 14 is the range you are looking at, or 20 to 25 is the range you are looking at. Those are the things that you need to at least have a handle on. And on that note, I think we'll wrap up this video. मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ आप लोगों को ये अच्छा लगा होगा। प्लीज़ हमारे वीडियो को लाइक करें, हमारे चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करें, एंड वी कंटिन्यू मेकिंग मोर वीडियोस फॉर यू। सो राम, डू यू हैव एनी आइडियाज अबाउट व्हाट वीडियोस डू यू वांट टू मेक नेक्स्ट?
I think the next step, let's start talking about how we can start to get there. Some people might already be there, some people might be far off. I think let's talk about how do you start thinking about planning for that future? How do you think about getting to that number?
Good idea, good idea. We will do that. So thank you, Ram. Thank you everyone for watching. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe. Bye.